Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here, and this is how to use Lanturn. Lanturn has a decent amount of stats that it has really good on the hit points. 125 base hit points is pretty awesome. But for the rest of it, we don't have too much offensively and we don't have much speed, so we're really just thinking that this Pokemon is going to be a tank. However, 58 on the defense, it's not bad with that 125, but it could be better, but it's still pretty usable. Like, you can endure a fair amount of hits even with a 58 defense because of that 125 hit points. Same with the special defense. Because of that, it seems like this Pokemon is just going to be fairly tanky. We're going to want to put some defensive investment to balance out the health, and then we'll be good to go. Now, Lanturn has the electric water typing, which is one of the best defensive typings in my opinion, that you have just a weakness to ground and grass. Those are the only things that really threaten you. Also, because of Lanturn, it has the water absorb or volt absorb ability. So that means you can actually have an immunity to water or electric depending on what your team needs. If you have a lot of electric weakness, you get the Volt Absorb. A lot of water weakness, you get the Water Absorb. Now you will see Volt Absorb more often just because it turns a neutral into an immunity instead of a resisted hit into immunity. So that's just something to consider. Okay, so let's hop into Pokemon Showdown and see how Lanturn works. Now, you can think about Lanturn like a Rotom Wash that's weak against ground type attacks. That's a very tanky Pokemon, and it does have some offensive capabilities. So think about like a Rotom that's weak against ground type attacks but can throw out an Ice Beam while also having its own little forms of disruption. That's kind of like how Lanturn wants to operate. They can have Leftovers Protect, that's going to give you a good amount of sustain. You have Scald to burn your opponent, Ice Beam for dragon coverage, and then Charge Beam as your stab and setup move. That you can get pretty offensive on this one, and you're still going to be very frustrating to knock out. Now, for the EVs, I was thinking a Calm Nature, that way we're getting the most out of our special defense, and then not fully investing the hit points. The reason why we don't fully invest in the hit points is because the difference of boosting defenses with EVs as opposed to hit points is much less on one that has a high base. So if you look, we go from 200 to 216, that's not really a lot. That's what, 8%? As opposed to 78 to 95. Much larger difference, so that means we're getting more effective health out of boosting the defense instead of the hit points. And then with the special defense, I was thinking, because we have the opportunity to burn the opponent with Scald, we can just put the rest in the special defense, have the hit points be really high, and then put the rest in the defensive bulk, and then we're about as tanky as we can be, and this is fairly optimized. Protect means that we're going to get a lot of health back from leftovers, and again, we're just going to look for that Charge Beam boost into coverage, and then we're good to go. Now, Lanturn can also just run all offensive moves, being an Assault Vest Pokemon, and this is where we can invest more into the hit points, because now our special defense is going to be boosted by Assault Vest, so we want the health to back it up, as well as just fully investing in the defense, and now we're just going to be stupid tanky. If Scald burns, that means we have over 400 hit points, over 400 effective defense, over 300 special defense, and then we can be throwing out some solid hits. So it's pretty much throughout the Charge Beam, see what happens, and then look for the coverage. Now, since we can't use Protect on the Assault Vest, you can have a fourth move. Hidden Power Grass or Hidden Power Fire, if you can breed for it, is really nice. And then we can also just put like Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt is going to be a stronger stab move that Charge Beam, that only gets boosted to 75 with stab. Thunderbolt goes way up to 135, so there's a lot more damage, and it's kind of like, oh, Charge Beam got me the boost, now I can use Stab Thunderbolt and start looking for some good amounts of damage. And because of the Charge Beam, we don't have to always invest in the special attack that, after one Charge Beam boost, we're going to be over 300 special attack, and since Lanturn has really good coverage, you might be able to make it work. If you're a 3-hit KO Pokemon, well, Charge Beam into Thunderbolt or Charge Beam into Scald, that has a good chance of knocking out a Pokemon, and then you might be able to get an extra hit in from there. And at least Lanturn is doing just more than one. It's 1+, and that's always really good on Lanturn. Now, when we look at some other things, it's a stockpile Pokemon, guys. Do I need to say more? We go for the stockpile. We try to balance out our defense as much as possible. That way, we're a really good mixed tank, A little more in special defense because, again, Scald could still kick in effect, but at the same time, if Scald doesn't work, you still want to be defensive. Boost up huge on the stockpile, get 1 or 2 stockpiles, rest, Chesto Berry, stockpile, Charge Beam until you're stacked, use Scald, burn your opponent, and then just carry from there. I've used this set before with great success, and I've seen this work from fans as well. I believe it was one of the Fan Fridays. This Lanturn was like setting up stockpile in double battles, and it was awesome. Speaking of double battles, Lanturn is amazing in double battles because it can support many different types of teams. That Volt Absorb and Water Absorb means that if you have an electric type Pokemon, Volt Absorb is going to be awesome for it. If you have a rain or water based team, Water Absorb is going to be also awesome for Lanturn, and it just really benefits from either of that. Now in doubles, I was thinking we could run a Shucca Berry, just because Earthquake is more common. You at least remove that super effective ground type for a turn, and then you throw an ice type at that. That Garchomp's gonna be like, well, I'm not worried about Lanturn, Earthquake's gonna knock it out, right? It doesn't, Ice Beam KOs Garchomp, and now we're good to go. And then with this, since we're not going to be investing to the hit points, we can just split the defenses. That's kind of it. Now I was thinking we could go Calm Nature instead of Modest, but if you want to run Modest, you can. I would just rather be tankier. And then with this, you know, now that we're getting all this support coming in, we have potential Volt Absorb, or we have potential Water Absorb being procced, and that means we're getting a lot of health back, so we don't have to invest into the health, and then we can start throwing out some good hits. You know, we're throwing out Discharge. Ally has Volt Absorb, well that means you get to discharge them for the heal, and then you also hurt your opponents, or if Water Absorb, you Surf, and then you hurt your opponents, and Lanturn just provides that great synergy. That's the Water Electric type that can stab into Volt and Water Absorb. It's ridiculously awesome, and I love it. Now some other potential, you know, Lanturn could bring its own rain. This could work in singles, but I'm mostly thinking doubles on this one. Pretty much the same EVs, because think about it. You have just that special attack investment. It doesn't matter if your special attack's only 251. You're going to get a Stab Thunder. That's going to hurt. Hydro Pump is going to be insane. That's Stab plus Rain Dance, so it's 50% boost and a 50% boost. And then Ice Beam, still that great coverage. Now I was thinking Water Absorb with this, because if you bring Rain Dance, that means Swift Swim is going to be awesome. And I was thinking Kingdra. Kingdra on the first turn, you know, you go hit point investment, special attack investment, and you just go hard. Focus energy, then after you have your rain set up, Swift Swim, you're going to be outspeeding a lot of Pokemon. Razor Claw plus that, and now Surf is always going to crit. So 50% plus Stab plus Rain, you're just going to be obliterating your opponents while healing up your Lanturn really well. Draco Meteor isn't affected, and then you have Protect for the Mind Games. Now I know that you do want to go for like crit Kingdra with a Sniper ability, but that's not what this is about. This is about Swift Swim, and this is still about pumping out ridiculous damage while being fairly tanky. You know, Lanturn can still throw out Thunder and Hydro Pump on this, and that's why we want to be running it. Now, if you don't want to play that 80% accuracy risk game, you can always use Scald. A little bit less damage, still has that chance to burn, and it's just really looking for that extra coverage that Kingdra needs. But if you think about it, you know, between Hydro Pump, Draco Meteor, and all those other fun stuff heading into your opponent's way, and it's not just Kingdra. Any Swift Swim Pokemon is going to work with this, so that's just like, you know, if you can get a Surf into Lanturn, that's great. If you have another Water Absorb Pokemon who are just throwing out Surfs on each other, you can get some ridiculous healing, and that's why we can also look at some other items, you know. If you're not running Shucca Berry, you can have a Citrus Berry. That way, Lanturn can get half of its health back in one turn. That's pretty insane. And that's kind of all there is to it. So if you guys enjoyed this video, Lanturn, Pokemon with a ton of potential, very tanky, very underrated. So go try it out and see how it goes. I think it can be pretty solid. So if you guys enjoyed the video, I hope you all have a nice day.